Hello, my name is Linda Allen. I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself and a lot about my service dog, Theodore. I have SCA6, an adult onset progressive ataxia. I was hereditarily genetically diagnosed in 2014 at age 62, but I had symptoms for probably 10 years that progressively got worse. I saw a number of neurologists. Finally, I was referred to a movement disorder specialist in Gainesville, Florida, and he immediately asked me if I would be willing to be tested for SCA6, and I said yes. The test came back positive, and in 2014 I began my official ataxia journey. My dad had an ataxia, was never officially diagnosed, but as he aged, he could no longer do the things that he had routinely done. He was very physically active. He worked as an electrician in his second career, so he was up and down ladders and very active. He progressed to the point where he had to use a walker and then a wheelchair. He fell several times and broke his hips, and I knew that with the diagnosis of ataxia at age 62, that although I was very active, I did Zumba every day, I played over 40 soccer as a goalkeeper, so I didn't have to run a lot, and I walked on the treadmill. I no longer can do those things, and I found that gradually as I aged and my ataxia progressed, I could do less and less of those types of things. Knowing that my dad had limited mobility, I knew what my future might be and thought it might be good for me to think about the future and think about a service dog. What got me interested in pursuing a service dog? Well, I thought about the pros and the cons and really didn't know what all was involved. But I did see several videos on various YouTube sites and also some ataxia support groups that addressed mobility service dogs. And these dogs are trained specifically for folks like us who have mobility, balance, gait issues. And so I decided that it was certainly worth inquiring about, and I did some internet searches myself. So you might ask, what's involved in the process for getting a service dog? Well, once the application is submitted, I'm sure at the organization they evaluate the application and the letter from the neurologist to determine what specific training a service dog might need for each individual's diagnosis. There was no charge to apply, and there really was no charge for the service dog. They receive about $20,000 worth of training over the course of the 2 to 3 years that they're trained. So this organization is certainly one with a heart. In March of this year, 2002, I received an email from New Horizons asking if I was still interested in a service dog? And I answered that yes, I certainly was, even after the 2 years that it had been since I completed the application. And so they set up a telephone interview where I interviewed with 2 individuals from the organization. And they wanted really to further assess what my physical status is, what my prognosis would be, and again, what type of service dog I need. The evaluation interview encompassed questions about my finances. Could I afford to feed a dog, and the vet bills involved? Did I have a fenced yard? And I do. It's not a requirement to have a fenced yard, but it is helpful. After the interview, I still didn't know if I was approved for a service dog or not. But late in April or early in May of this year, I got another email saying that yes, I had been approved and that training would actually start in the middle of June. So it was a very short window from the time I realized I was approved to the time that training started. I did have to send a payment of $500 to the organization, which covered training expenses the organization was incurring. It covered all the dog's equipment, leash, vest, a huge bag of food, and his bowl, feeding bowl, and a few other necessities. Poop bags, for example. Just as a little background information on the training of these dogs, when the dogs are puppies, at about 8 weeks old, each dog is placed in a volunteer puppy raising family. And what the family does is teach the dog basic puppy skills, good canine behavior, housebreaking, things like that. And then after the dog is about 8 months old, the dog is bonded with an inmate in one of 3 state prison programs. These inmates are screened very carefully about their desire to work and train a service dog for at least a year. And so the dog is placed with an inmate and bonds with that inmate. The inmate actually spends a year with the dog 24/7 in their residence and in their daily functions that they do while they're incarcerated. It's really a win-win situation for both the dog and the inmate, as well as the organization, because the inmate has an opportunity to bond with the dog and create a marvelous, well-trained dog. The dog gets a year of very personal attention. The organization doesn't have to pay for this training because of the agreement with the state. So it's a wonderful plan. Many of the inmates, when they're released, go on to work in the dog training or dog grooming field, which is certainly uplifting. Let me just comment too that during our online training, we had to learn the 70 or 80 specific commands that the dogs had learned for their tasks over the past 2 years. So imagine 18 people of various ages and abilities and disabilities trying to memorize on flashcards of various tasks. And they had to be specific because the dogs have learned a specific word to associate with a specific task. So that was probably one of the most daunting things that we did. The 18 people who were in my class were a varied group. There were 4 children, probably around the age of 10, who were autistic. There were several gentlemen in large wheelchairs who had cerebral palsy. One had MS, another lady had MS. There were several people with PTSD, and then there were several people like myself with various forms of ataxias. We spent the rest of the afternoon of that first day bonding with our dogs, starting to bond with our dogs, brushing them, loving them, letting them sniff us, and really just giving them our full attention. The trainers rounded with each of us and with each of the dogs. They did tell us that the dog we are given today may not be the dog that we're assigned to permanently, based on making sure that they were able to match the dogs with the best training for each individual's needs. During that first day, the dogs went back to the kennel, and we handlers went back to our hotels or wherever we were staying, exhausted and emotionally drained. We were certainly very excited. The second day, the dogs joined us again at the training facility. We worked on how we would handle walking, ambulating, or however we move with our dogs. I have a rollator, so I had to learn to manage, to hold the leash, manage the dog, and the rollator at the same time. Thankfully, these dogs are so well trained. They put up with the various times we ran into them with our assistive devices. Some of the folks, as I said, were in wheelchairs, and they learned to manage. And here we are, 18 of us in a room, and each of us had an attendant or caregiver with us. 18 dogs, 7 handlers with their 7 dogs. It was really quite a scene. The next 4 days of in-person training, we continued to learn how to navigate with our new special best friends. We had to prepare ourselves to pass public access tests to prove that we were capable of managing dogs in public situations. So we actually went on numerous field trips with the dogs. We went to Lowe's, which is a big box kind of hardware store for those of you who might not be in the United States. We went to a grocery store. We went to a mall where we met in a food court, and I thought that would have been very challenging with all those amazing scents at the food court, but the dogs were like so calm, more calm than the handlers, I can guarantee you that. The 4th day, we actually had to take a train ride. Now, I haven't been on a train for probably 50 years, but we met at the train station, all 18 of us with our dogs, handlers, and trainers, caregivers went for about a half an hour train ride to a cute little town where we actually explored some boutique type shops. Imagine the first shop I went in was a chocolate store. And Theodore was not at all impressed with the wonderful smells. The next door was the little boutique store, and I thought, oh gosh, this is like taking a bull in a china shop. But he was very good with all the delicate china and candles and things that were on the shelves. Then we all met at a restaurant, and the dogs had to show their go-in skills, which meant they were able to just go onto the table and to be still for the hour or two that we had our lunch. We then, after a delicious lunch, rode the train back to the little town of Drewery, and then we were released to take our dogs home with us. It was really quite an adventure, and may I add that the temperature, it was summer in Florida, so the temperature was probably close to 100 degrees when we were outside, so we had to be very careful that the dogs didn't get overheated, that they didn't walk on hot pavement for too long. It was really quite an adventure and quite a good training experience. Grace, good boy. Good boy. Thank you. First 30 days, the dog needs to be with the handler 24/7. So I had Theodore on his leash with me 24/7 for 30 days. That's so the dog realizes that he is now bonded with me and I'm his new person. It was wonderful. It was really hard on my husband because he had to ignore the dog for 30 days. It's hard to ignore a 76-pound furball who's always wagging his tail and wanting to give you a little love. Everything good has to come from the handler, again, to enhance that bonding. So mealtime, treat time, brushing, walking, anything at all needs to happen between Theodore and myself. It's only been a little more than 3 months that we've been together, but I feel like he not only is my new best friend, he is my lifeline. Since he's been part of my life, he really has helped me become a little more calm. The brushing him every day helps me to relax, and he's pretty relaxed. It also, his presence has given me the confidence and desire to go out into more public places. So I'm so thankful for him, and I'm so thankful for New Horizons. Every minute, I love him.